Hey guys, Kobani here with another tutorial on Maya 2016. Today we'll be learning how to render metal with mental ray. Let's begin. So to start off, we need the rendering software mental ray. If you don't know about mental ray, it's basically a plugin that you have to download outside of Maya itself, and it can be found on the Autodesk website. If you are using Maya 2017, ditched mental ray, so they are using Arnold nowadays, but I'm working on Maya 2016 and that still has mental ray. Gradually, mental ray is becoming obsolete, so this is going to be a short and simple tutorial. I'm not going to go in depth about every single thing, but let's begin. Firstly, I'll show you guys how to activate your mental ray if you have the plugin downloaded. And make sure you download the right plugin for your version of Maya. To activate mental ray, you go to your Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager. You scroll all the way down to Maya to mr.bundle and you click loaded and auto load. This will make it load every time you start your Maya, and also would load it right now. Sometimes it will deactivate itself. I don't know what causes that, but you just have to come back once in a while if you need mental ray and you don't see it in your options. Another place where we'll be going to is Windows again, rendering editors, and go to your render settings. The shortcut to the render settings is up here. If you can see my mouse, is the symbol with the eye, the symbol without the eye, the symbol with IPR, and the symbol with the gear symbol. The gear symbol activates your render settings. This is the shortcut to the render settings. And the last one is will be called the hyper shade. It's basically the part where Maya you go to manipulate your materials in Maya. We'll be using that shortly. But let's focus on the render settings now. For your render settings, change your render using to mental ray, and we'll leave that for now. Firstly, before we go into too much details, I'm going to close my render settings and I'm going to create a camera that will be rendering as scene from. Go to panels, perspective, and new. Name the camera whatever you want. I'm going to name it render cam. While the camera is still selected, you can name it from right here. If you can't select your camera, you can go to view and select camera, and it will select a camera for you. Now that we have a camera that we are going to use for rendering, you're going to set it up for the render. So I'm going to go to view, camera settings, and activate the resolution gate. This gate dictates what will be rendered and what the viewers will see when you render your scene. I'm going to put it at a good angle so you can see the chest piece, and I'm going to hide the torso because I don't need it in my scene. We're just focusing on the metal today. I'm hiding my torso by pressing Ctrl H while it's selected. The only problem from doing this is that since my armor doesn't have an interior, then there are no normals inside, it will render very badly. So now that I think about it, I'm going to bring back my armor. And I bring it back by pressing Shift Ctrl H. And by my armor, I make my torso. But our focus today is on the metal itself, not on the torso. When you get the resolution, the scene you want, you can lock your camera by going to View, select Camera, and then highlight your Translate, Scale, and Rotate, and right-click, and while holding right-click, scroll all the way down to Lock Selected. This will prevent you from mistakenly messing up your camera. In order to unlock it, just do the same thing, View, select Camera, highlight, and then right-click to unlock selected. But right now, I'm going to keep it locked. Go back to your render settings, scroll down, and you'll see renderable cameras. Change it to your new camera that you just created. Change your resolution to whatever resolution you need your image in. I'm going to put it in 1080. And also you can change your file name right here to any kind of file you want it to save as. I'm going to save it as a tagger because taggers are less condensed than JPEGs, and there it keeps your information properly, in my opinion. But taggers can be opened by every software, so you have to remember that. And lastly, we'll scroll all the way down to render options and turn off enable default light. Default light is the light we see when while we are modeling. It can mess up your lighting when you set up your own lighting, and it will interfere with other lighting, so that's why I turn it off. Now for this one, since it's a tutorial on the metal only and not about lighting, I'm going to be using a simple way of lighting that I wouldn't recommend for professional use, but you can use it if you are just doing stuff for practice or to test something out, your materials out, but not for a professional render or something. You go to scene, and under physical sun and sky, just click create. With this, Maya creates physical sun and sky for you, which can also be known as IBL, which is image-based lighting, and it creates a directional light for you. A directional light in Maya is also classified as a sunlight. The sunlight doesn't have decay. It casts different shadows depending on the intensity, or it can be known as the time of day. But we are not going to lighten right now. This is more on the material itself. Also, one disclaimer that we are not going to be going to a very detailed metal. This is just to get the material to look like metal, but we are not going to go into details like rust and all that stuff. Those are based on textures and different aspects of rendering. So I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to change my camera back to my perspective by going to panels, perspective, and then click persp. I'm going to create a plane that will serve as like a camera shoot, like when the cameramen are shooting like models and stuff. You see they have like a white background and a white floor or something, just so that light bounces around and comes back to the model or whoever is getting a picture taken. But I'm going to create an easy one by creating a cube, and with nothing selected, I'm going to press shift right click and polycube. I'm going to bring the cube up, scale it up. I'm going to delete these faces right here because I don't need them. I'm going to select the cube, and I'm going to reverse the normals by going to under your modeling tab, go to your mesh display, reverse. You can also, I have a shortcut to it over here, but in case you don't know what a shortcut is, you can just do it yourself by going to mesh display and reverse. I'm going to put this one a little bit up so it casts a shadow on the floor. And I'm going to go back to my camera and see how my stuff looks in the camera view. Okay, as you can see, I'm going to make sure everything, this part doesn't look like that, so I'm going to pull it out a little. So I'm going back to my perspective, and I'm going to scale it out this way. Go back to my render cam. Okay, I like the way everything's looking now. I'm going to leave it like this. Now I'm going to go back to my perspective view, because we'll be working mostly in the perspective view, but the render scene will be locked, and that will be what we'll be rendering. I'm going to press 7. If you have no lights on, everything will turn black. 7 is lighting mode in Maya. And because we have the physical sun and sky created, that's why we can still see stuff. In order to change the intensity of your light, open your outliner by going to Windows, Outliner. I have a shortcut to it over here. And I've already done videos on how to, not videos exactly, but my other videos have a mini tutorial on how to create your shelf and add stuff to it. So, but I digress. To increase the intensity of your light, click on your light, which in this case will be called sun direction. Press Ctrl A to open your attribute editor, or it can be this button right here. And this is the intensity of the light. You move this up and down to increase your intensity. And for now, I'm going to leave it at 1 because we are not carrying about our light. So right now, until we are done with the material. I'm going to select this chess piece, and I'm going to select, while it's selected, I'm going to right click, scroll down to assign new material. If you have mental ray installed, you'll see this right here, an option for mental ray. Go to materials and select MIA material X. Click on the second tab and change the name of the material to whatever you need. I'm going to name this one metal. Actually, I like to put mat at the end of the name, because sometimes when you export materials to use it in other stuff, when it has a mat and at the end, whoever is using it, or even you yourself might remember, oh, it's a material because I put MAT at the end. But this is just a personal preference. Now that I have the material set, I'm just going to click on the back side, since I made my armor piece 2 different pieces. And also, if you want to know how I made this chess piece, I have a tutorial for it too, even though sadly that tutorial is very long, so I apologize for that. But you can use any object to practice this. You don't have to actually have like a armor piece or something. So I'm going to right click and hold and scroll all the way down to assign existing material and choose metal MAT. For this video, I'm not going to worry about the leather that is hanging on it, but there are rivets on it that also need the MAT material applied to them. The reason we can't see the back side is because of the shadow. We are in lighting mode right now. If I were to be in 5 mode, we will see everything perfectly. But because I'm in light mode, it's showing me how my light is acting on my object. So in order to select all my rivets, instead of going through manually, I have my stuff grouped up. So I'll go to my groups, select rivets. While everything is selected, right click, scroll all the way down to material, add existing material, or assign existing material, and metal. Now anything I change on that material exactly will change on everything that has a material applied to it. And as I said, we are not going to focus on the leather that binds the front piece and the back piece, because leather acts very differently to metal. So now I'll just select the front piece and choose the material, and now we'll start manipulating the material. Before we start manipulating the material, I'm going to open my render view, which is the eye symbol up here. Open it and you get a render view. We are going to select the first one, but right click on it and change it to render camera. Now anything it renders will render in the render camera. It will try and render. You can press escape to cancel the render. And right now, as you can see, we can see the intensity of the light. Oh, and the thing in between is my image plane. So let me just remove that. I have my image plane hidden, so it doesn't show, but in reality it will still render. So I'm going to hide it and then show image planes. If you have something hidden in the scene, it will still render even though it's hidden, so you have to remember that. I'm going to move it all the way out just so it doesn't render. And also when you're rendering, make sure you save your scenes multiple times, just in case, because renders is where your stuff can crash a lot. So I'm going to save this one. I have my project already set, so that I know where my files are going to. So I'm going to save the scene. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to save it as a new file. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to open my render view again, and I'm going to drag an area that I want to render, because I don't care about everything else right now. I just care about this specific part, and I'm going to render the region just to see it again. Okay. While we are working in the render view, make sure this button right here is off. It's called gamma. It's the RGB gamma that Maya uses. If it's on, it makes your stuff look washed out, but it also makes you think your brightness is high. But when you turn it off, it shows you your actual brightness, and then this is how it actually looks like. I'm going to be I'm going to render using the IPL. IPL, don't rely on it 100%. It's just a preview kind of thing. It might lie to you, but when you actually render it, it won't look the way it looked in IPL sometimes. I use IPL just to see my material changing and just to tweak stuff around. So you click on IPL and your stuff will turn into a grayscale. I mean a wireframe, sorry about that, and then drag the area you want to see. The bigger the area, the longer the IPR will take to render. I just need this area up here. I don't need the whole thing. And now we'll start working on the material. I'm going to select the chess piece, and anything I change in the material, you'll see it in real time render here, as you can see. So we'll start by keeping our reflectivity between 0.6 or 1. The point, if you go lower than 0.6, it doesn't look metallic in my opinion, because metal has a level of reflectivity, and the more reflectivity it dictates how the metal reacts to the light. Whether you want your metal to be glossy or blurry, like or the reflections on the metal to be very clear or not very clear. Like if something reflects on gold, it won't look the same on a spoon. So it all comes down to the kind of metal you're rendering. So this is why you need a reference image, and I'll be using this reference as a reference already. I've already rendered this metal like multiple times, but this is just a tutorial, so I'm not going to go into too much details. So change your reflectivity to any level you want. 1 is the maximum, it will reflect almost everything in the scene. That's almost a perfect point. But your glossiness is where you change how glossy the metal is, which is basically how clean or polished it is, or how shiny it looks. Your glossiness is what you use to check how shiny your metal will look or how clean it will look when it's reflecting light. So you can tweak your reflectivity and your glossiness to any point you want. This part is all about tweaking. You don't even have to use the numbers I'm using, just use the numbers you want. But make sure it's reasonable. Some people like to keep glossiness at 1 just so they don't have to worry about stuff. But then it makes light diffuse on your surface without any reflection spot. But when I turn on my glossiness, you can see that reflection spot, which is basically where the sun is. So I just reduce it a little, and you can reduce your reflectivity a little bit more to make it not too bright or washed out. And I'm going to change my color to something more easy on the eyes, I guess, or just better to look at. Which, these means hue, saturation, and value. Saturation is basically, I'll say, how intense the color is, and value is how dark or light the color will be. Basically, the shade or the tint of the color. Shade is more black and tint is more white. Okay, I'm going to leave it on this color right here. And right here is where it's an important part. If you click metal material, metal ray will change some settings around to make it look metallic. And you can leave it like that if you want, but I like to go in and tweak one more thing. We don't care about refraction right now. Refraction is more for glass. You can tweak it if you want, but I don't think anything will change much. What we need is a BLDF. The BLDF also helps with how the reflections on the metal will look, whether they look blurry or shiny. On default, they have the setting is 0.2 for 0-degree reflection and 1 for 90-degree reflection. If you look at metal, you can see some black lines in it or dark lines, which are basically the reflection of the environment. Like in this metal right here, you can see my mouse. You can see this right here. This is like whatever is in the environment that the metal is reflecting. So tweaking these degrees will tweak how those reflections will look on the metal. Don't mess with the curve right now because it's more complicated. It's not more complicated, but messing with the curve will mess with the settings that you're working on here too. And you have to tweak your settings as you are tweaking the curve. It just dictates how much you want your settings to affect the material. It's like the level settings in Photoshop, if you know what I'm talking about. But what we're going to focus on tweaking right now is the 0-degree and the 90-degree. I'm going to start by pulling the 0-degree all the way up to 1, so you see the difference. And see how my metal changed into a very dark metal, which means it's accepting almost everything in the environment so much that the color became very dark. You can make a metal like that if you want, but I don't like it when it's too dark. I just like it to be a little bit easy on the eye, and then you can change the angle at which it's reflecting. This is where the IPR will lie to you. IPR doesn't read these settings when you change them properly a lot, so this is like up to you. You can render it and save the image. When you render something, you save the image by pressing this button, if you can see my mouse. And basically you can compare two images that you rendered. But make sure you save, because if you move the bar, it deletes the previous render if the image wasn't saved. It's a temporary save, by the way. It's not a permanent save. In order to actually save the image, you go to File and Save Image. So now that we got a metallic looking object, it's very easy, as you can see. But as I said, this is a very basic level of rendering metal. There's a lot of things that go into it. And because we are not working with our own lights, like lights that we created, or an IBL that we created ourselves, there are some settings that I'm ignoring, because there's some stuff that you have to do or tweak around to make your render look more better. I'm going to open my render settings, go to quality, and we'll be using unified sampling, which is the easiest way of rendering, in my opinion, for beginners. And I'm going to stress this again, this is a very basic video. There's more complicated things that go into rendering. This is just for people who want a quick metallic looking surface on material on their object, and then they are done, just to show it off on a website or something. So back to business, go to legacy options, click on it, make sure this settings, your sampling mode is on unified sampling. Scroll down, make sure final gathering is checked, and up here, indirect diffuse GI mode. If it's on final gather, turn it off, and then put it back on to final gather. You see the difference when I turned it off and when I turned it back on? For some reason, Maya doesn't remember the settings, so sometimes you have to turn it off and turn it back on for Maya to realize, oh, he wants to use final gather, so it activates the indirect diffuse quality. Do not touch this bar. The bar we'll be touching is the overall quality. Overall quality tweaks everything for you, but sometimes in some complicated renders, you can't rely on overall quality, and you have to manually go into your lights and tweak the shadows and other stuff just to make your stuff look better with less aliasing. But that's a more complicated version of shading and lighting that I don't want to go into right now. The average overall quality I'll say use is 8, but for now we're going to keep it at 0.25 so that our scene renders quickly, because this is just a preview. We just need a preview, we don't need the final version yet. If you render at 8 and your shadows look bad, or everything, there's jaggedness in your scene and you have bad aliasing, then you can keep on increasing your overall quality. I increase it in increments of multiples of 2, like 8, 16, 32, and on and on. But if I get to a point where it looks good, I start going back a little until I get to a point, because your render settings, your render time gets higher and higher the larger your overall quality, so you have to think about that. There's another setting called the trace depth, but the trace depth, this is more focused on I think it works better on glass, but one thing you have to make sure is that your reflection and your max trace depth, your reflection plus your transmission equals your max trace depth. The trace depth is basically how much how many times your Maya will scan the material for the specific thing while it's rendering. That's the most basic way I can explain it. Like if Maya is rendering, it will be like scanning your material for reflectivity, and to just scan it for, like, let's say to increments of 4. After 4 scans it will stop or something. This is a basic explanation, but make sure your max trace depth is a total of your transmission and reflection. So 4 plus 4 is 10. The number can change depending on the material. Glass uses different trace depth, or like, because it depends on how many materials are in your scene, but the higher the trace depth, your render time might also increase. Oh, sorry, I said 4 plus 4 is 10. I'm sorry, I'm used to using 6 and 4. That's why I said 4 plus 4 is 10. Sorry about that. It's 8. But I like putting on my reflection as 6. But for this material, I don't think we need to increase it that much, because there's no there's not a lot of things in the scene. If like there was some things in the scene that will reflecting on the metal, then I'll be increasing the reflection. So I'm going to leave it at 4. Now leave my match trace depth at 8. Okay, and now I'm going to pull my actually I'll leave my overall quality at 25 at 0.25, and I'm going to render the whole scene now and see how my metal looks like. While it's rendering, I'm going to remind you guys like we used the physical sun and sky that Maya gave to us, so the lighting won't be perfect. It sometimes it looks good, but in my opinion, it's not good for professional production and stuff. So it's just a good thing for beginners, or if you just want to preview your material. So basically, as you can see, we have a good metal that is reflecting the torso nicely. And we have a good shadow on the ground. Although the shadow has some aliasing and there's some aliasing on the object, but it's not done rendering, so can't tell for now. Oh, and one more thing, I forgot to put my object in smooth mode before I rendered it. I modeled the object for smooth mode. So I'm going to put it in smooth mode by pressing 3. That puts it in smooth mode, and it makes my stuff look smoother when I render it. I'm going to save this image by pressing this button here. I'm going to render again so you guys see the difference between my smooth mode render and my normal render. Because our render overall quality is on 0.25, our render is rendering very quickly. But when I change it up to a number to make my shadows and reflections look better, the render time will be longer, which is logical. Right now I'm not going to edit this rendering time out because I just want you guys to see. Because as you can see, it says render time 42 seconds right here. But when I do the actual render, you see the difference between them. I'm going to save this image too. Which, as I said earlier, is a temporary save. As soon as I move this bar, this will be deleted. But now that I saved it already, it will keep the save now. So now that I move the bar, you can see the difference between the smooth render, which is this, and the non-smooth render. The light acts differently, the reflections act differently. So it all depends on your material and how jagged or smooth it is. So now I'm going to do the final render. I'm going to go back to my settings and increase it to 8. But since this is a tutorial and I don't care about like my shadows and aliasing and stuff, I'm just going to render at 8 and then end the tutorial there by showing you guys the difference between the 8 and the 0.25. Sometimes it's a large difference, sometimes it's a little difference, but actually for this one I think it will be a large difference. Let me press 8. I mean 8. And I'll go to my legacy options and make sure this number is on 200. If it's not on 200, it tells you that something is wrong. So just tweak this, like move it all the way up and move it all the way down, and then move it back to 1. That's just a tip. Sometimes Maya doesn't record your changes and leaves this at a low number. So just make sure when this is 1, that number has to be 200. So just a side tip. So I'm going to shut up and render now. So see you guys after the render is done. Okay guys, welcome back. This render took 4 minutes 17 seconds, which was actually shorter than I expected. But I guess it's because we don't have a lot of assets in the scene and there's not a lot of reflectivity and stuff. But this is our final render. I hope this gave you guys some basic knowledge on lighting and rendering with mental ray. In my opinion, the other rendering softwares look better in my opinion. They all do different things. You just have to know the basics, and then you can use any rendering software. You just need to know where the tools are. It's like modeling with Maya. If you know where the tools are in another software, you can do the same model again. Although they all come with their own special features that make them better or worse. So I hope this helped people out who are wondering about how I did some of my renders. I'm going to save this image now. File, save image. Save it as whatever you want, like Tiger or whatever. I'm going to save it as a JPEG because I need to open it in this software that doesn't allow Tiger, sadly. And I'm going to just name anything. So thanks for watching, and have a nice day or night, depending on who you are.